How does the most famous mother in history vanish from the record? The most famous mother in human history. 2 billion people know her name. And nobody, not one person, wrote down the day she died. Think about that. Not a sentence, not a date, not even a location that every tradition agrees on. The woman who said yes in a dark room in Nazareth when saying yes could have gotten her killed. The woman who walked 100 miles through dangerous country newly pregnant because she had nowhere else to go. The woman who stood at the foot of the cross without collapsing while every disciple but one had already run. The woman whose memory gave Luke everything he needed to write the 2 chapters that 2 billion people read every Christmas morning. That woman. And history just let her go, quietly, without recording the moment. Now here's what should stop you completely. It was not an accident. It was not negligence. The early church knew exactly who she was. The apostles knew. The thousands of new believers who came just to sit across from her and ask, what was he like? They knew. And still, no one wrote it down. Which means one of 2 things is true. Either the end of her story was so quiet, so private, so entirely consistent with how she had lived every single day of her life, that the people around her could not find words worthy of recording it. Or, what happened at the end of Mary's life was so unexpected, so far outside the boundaries of ordinary human experience, that the church has spent 2,000 years arguing about how to describe it. For the next 30 minutes, we are walking through the final chapter. The years after the cross. The years after Pentecost. The years nobody talks about. And the 4 theories about how it all ended. 4 traditions. 4 locations. 2,000 years of disagreement. By the end of this video, I want to know which one you believe. How does the most famous mother in history vanish from the record? She did not vanish. She finished. Quietly. Completely. The way she had always done everything. And the argument about where and how, the argument that has never been resolved, is the most compelling evidence of how much she still matters. Asterisk. Subscribe before this video goes any further, because what you are about to hear is the chapter of her story that even the people who love her most have never been fully told. And when this is over, think of one woman in your life who has been faithful and quiet and unrecognized for a long time. Send this to her tonight, because this story was made for her. What does a mother do the morning after she watches her son die? John chapter 19. 3 hours before his death, Jesus looked down from the cross and saw 2 people who had not run, his mother and John. Everyone else was gone. The 12, the men who had walked with him for 3 years, who had seen the miracles and heard the sermons and eaten the bread he broke with his own hands, had scattered into the city the moment the soldiers came. But she was still there, standing, not kneeling, not collapsed, standing, her back straight, her hands at her sides, her eyes on his face. And in the middle of his own dying, with everything his body was asking him to think about, he looked at her and made an arrangement. Woman, behold your son. Then to John, behold your mother. 3 words to each of them. And with those 3 words, the shape of her entire remaining life was decided. From that hour, John took her into his own home. Not eventually, not when things calmed down. From that hour, the cross was still occupied. The soldiers were still there. The sky was still the wrong color for the middle of the afternoon. And John took her home. Now here's the question that nobody asks about the days that followed. What did she do the morning after the crucifixion? Saturday was the Sabbath. She could not go to the tomb, could not complete the burial rites for her own son. The law she had kept her entire life, the same law that had nearly gotten her killed at 16. now kept her inside on the day she most needed to move. She sat in John's house, in Jerusalem, and the bread still had to be made. The lamp still had to be lit. The same hands that had ground grain in Nazareth for 30 years, that had swaddled a newborn on a cave floor in Bethlehem, that had been steady at the foot of the cross when steadiness seemed impossible. Those hands did the ordinary things, because when there is nothing else left to do, you do the ordinary things, and you wait. Did Mary see the risen Jesus? Sunday came, and the tomb was empty. The resurrection accounts name Mary Magdalene. They named Joanna. They named the other women who came to the tomb before dawn with spices in their hands and grief in their chests. They did not name his mother. She is not at the tomb. She is not on the road to Emmaus. She is not in the upper room when Thomas puts his fingers in the wounds. She is not on the shore of Galilee when Jesus cooks breakfast for the disciples in the early morning. In every recorded resurrection appearance, she is absent, and that absence is one of the most quietly devastating details in the entire New Testament, because there are only two explanations. Either she was there, and the gospel writers, for reasons we'll never fully understand, chose not to record it, or she was not there, and he came to her privately, in a room, just the two of them, no witnesses, no account, the way the most important moments of her life had always happened, in private, unrecorded, between her and God. What we do know is this: Acts chapter 1, the upper room, before Pentecost, there she is, together with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his brothers. Her sons, James, Joses, Judas, Simon, the same brothers who during the ministry tried to drag Jesus home because they thought he had lost his mind, now sitting in the same room, praying the same prayer, waiting for the same promise. Something changed them. The resurrection, almost certainly, but also her. A woman who had carried 30 years of things she did not fully understand, who had stood at the cross without breaking, who was now sitting in this room with the quiet certainty of someone who had already been through the worst thing and survived it. Her presence in that room was not incidental. It was foundational. And then the fire fell, the rush of wind, the flames above every head. 120 people walking out of that upper room, speaking languages they had never learned. The last time the Holy Spirit came to her, she was alone. A teenager in a dark room in Nazareth. That encounter gave her a son. This one gave her something larger. A church, a family bigger than the one she raised. A purpose that stretched far beyond Nazareth, beyond motherhood, beyond everything she had ever imagined her life would contain. She was 50 years old, maybe more, and she was just beginning. We asked, what does a mother do the morning after she watches her son die? She makes the bread. She lights the lamp. She sits in the Sabbath stillness and waits. And when the fire falls, she walks into it, because that is what she has always done. Said yes, and kept going. What does it mean to be the only living person who was there from the very beginning? Picture Jerusalem in the years after Pentecost. The church is growing faster than anyone expected. 3,000 baptized in a single day. Then 5,000. Communities forming in houses across the city. A movement spreading through every neighborhood, every social class, every corner of a city that is already watching it with narrowed eyes. And in John's house in the upper city, not preaching, not leading in any formal sense, not holding any title the movement would have recognized, is a woman in her 50s. Every day people come. New believers who heard Peter preach and walked away from the temple and now need to understand what they have walked toward. Young men who want to know what Jesus laughed at. Mothers who want to know how Mary raised him. Gentiles who have heard the story secondhand and need to hear it from someone who was there. There is only one person in Jerusalem who can answer every question. Only one person who was present at the Annunciation, the birth, the childhood, the wedding at Cana, the cross, the upper room, and Pentecost. One person whose memory contains the complete arc of the story from the very first moment to the present day. She had carried these things for 30 years in silence. Luke tells us she treasured them in her heart. But treasure kept in a heart serves only the heart that holds it. Now the church needed it, and she opened the treasury. The angel in the dark room, the exact words he said, the way the greeting troubled her before she understood it. The journey to Elizabeth, the cave in Bethlehem, the shepherds arriving breathless in the middle of the night with a story about the sky breaking open above their fields. The old man Simeon in the temple taking the baby in his arms and whispering, "A sword will pierce your soul." She had held every one of these stories for decades, waiting without knowing she was waiting. For Luke. Luke, the physician, the careful recorder, never met Jesus during the ministry. When he writes that he investigated everything carefully from the beginning he is describing is her testimony. Every nativity scene you have ever seen. Every time a choir sings about a manger and a star. Every Christmas morning reading. And she wrapped him in swaddling cloths and laid him in a manger. That sentence came from her mouth. She told someone. That someone told Luke. Luke wrote it down. Without Mary's survival, without the specific survival of this one woman through 9 months that should have broken her, the Christmas story does not exist. Not one word of it. Asterisk, asterisk. But Jerusalem was becoming something else. Stephen, one of the first deacons, was dragged outside the city walls and stoned to death. The same punishment Mary had faced in Nazareth 30 years earlier was now being applied to everyone who followed her son. Saul of Tarsus was going house to house, pulling believers out of their homes and throwing them into prison. James, John's brother, was killed by Herod with a sword. Peter was arrested. The inner circle was being hunted one by one. And John looked around at what Jerusalem was becoming and made a decision. Where did John take her? He had a promise to keep. From a cross, in front of witnesses. In the last hours, a man whose words John had spent 3 years writing down because he understood, even then, that every word mattered. Behold your mother. That promise did not expire when the city became dangerous. It became more urgent. John had to leave Jerusalem, and he could not leave her behind. So he took her, and where he took her, the road he chose, the city they arrived in, the hillside above it where he eventually brought her to live, is the beginning of the most contested, most debated, most emotionally charged question in the entire history of the church. Where did Mary spend her final years? And where did she die? If you're watching this and you have not shared this video yet, pause right now. Think of one person who needs to hear this story, not the version they teach in Sunday school. This version, the real one, send it before this chapter is over. Because what comes next, the 4 theories about where Mary died, is the part of the story that has divided historians, theologians, and pilgrims for 2,000 years. And I want you to hear all 4 before you make up your mind. Asterisk. We asked, what does it mean to be the only living person who was there from the very beginning? It means you become the memory of the church, the living archive that no persecution can reach as long as you are breathing. And it means that when the city holding your son's tomb becomes too dangerous to stay in, your survival is not personal. It is historical. The story leaves with you. For answers to the same question, 2,000 years, no consensus. What does that tell us? For traditions, for locations, 2,000 years of the church's best minds examining the same evidence and arriving at 4 different conclusions. Let me give you all 4, fairly, completely, and then I want your answer in the comments. The first theory, she never left Jerusalem. The oldest tradition in Eastern Christianity places Mary's death on Mount Zion. The Church of the Dormition, one of the most sacred sites in the Christian world, stands on the spot where this tradition says she breathed her last, walking distance from the upper room where she prayed at Pentecost, minutes from Gethsemane where her son sweat blood the night before his arrest. The tomb of the Virgin, a cave church near the Garden of Gethsemane venerated since at least the 5th century, is where this tradition says she was buried. It is one of the few holy sites in Jerusalem shared by both Christians and Muslims. Muslims venerate Mary as one of the most righteous women who ever lived. The Quran mentions her more times than the entire New Testament does. They have prayed at this tomb for over 1,000 years. The argument for Jerusalem is simple and human. She had watched her son die here. She had seen him risen here. The church was born here. Why would she leave the city that held everything? The second theory, she died in Ephesus. John took her across the Mediterranean to Ephesus, a Roman city of 250,000 people. The Temple of Artemis on its skyline, marble streets, a theater carved into a hillside seating 25,000. One of the most powerful, most pagan, most overwhelming cities in the ancient world. A woman from a village of 400 people, standing in it for the first time in her 60s. John did not keep her in the city. He took her above it, up a winding path through pine trees and wild olive groves to a hillside the locals would later call Bulbul Dejai, the mountain of nightingales. And on that hillside, a small stone house, one main room, a fireplace, a spring of fresh water, windows set high in the walls, almost identical to the house in Nazareth. In 1881, a French priest followed the written descriptions of a German nun named Catherine Emmerich, who had never left Germany, had never seen Turkey, had never been given the coordinates, and found a stone structure on that exact hillside matching every detail she described. Archaeological investigation confirmed the lower foundations date to the 1st century. 3 popes have visited: Paul VI, John Paul II, Benedict XVI. Christians and Muslims both make pilgrimage here today. Outside the house, a wall is covered with thousands of handwritten prayers tied to the stones by visitors from every country on earth. Can we prove it was Mary's house? No, but the foundations are the right age, in the right city, matching a tradition that has never needed promotion because it has never stopped drawing people. The third theory, the Dormition. This is the answer the church gave when the historical argument would not resolve. In Eastern Christianity, Mary's death is not called death. It is called the Dormition, the falling asleep. The tradition, held across Orthodox, Catholic, and many Protestant communities, is that Mary did not die the way ordinary humans die. She fell into a deep and final sleep and was taken body and soul into heaven. The Catholic Church defined this as dogma in 1950. Pope Pius XII declared it an article of faith. that at the end of her earthly life, Mary was assumed body and soul into heavenly glory. The theological argument underneath it is quiet and devastating in equal measure. The body that carried the Son of God, that held him for 9 months, nursed him for 3 years, wrapped him in swaddling bands, held his hands while he learned to walk. That body did not belong in a grave. It was consecrated ground, and consecrated ground does not decay. The fourth theory, and this is the one that will stay with you longest. She simply vanished from history. No gospel records her death. No apostle mentions it. No historian alive when it happened noted the date, the location, the manner, the witnesses. Not because she was forgotten, not because she was unimportant, but because the people who loved her were too busy carrying forward what she had given them to stop and mark the moment she was gone. She had spent her entire life making sure the story survived, and it did. And she slipped away quietly inside it, the way a voice disappears into the song it taught you. Not lost, just become part of something larger than itself. The detail that connects all four theories. Now here is what nobody mentions when they argue about which theory is correct. Every single one of them, Jerusalem, Ephesus, the Dormition, the quiet vanishing, describes the same kind of ending. Private, unannounced, without spectacle. Jerusalem or Ephesus, she was in a small room. Not a palace, not a public square, not a stage. The Dormition, a falling asleep. Not a declaration, a breath that simply did not come again. The quiet vanishing, no record because there was no scene to record. For completely different theological conclusions. One consistent human truth. She left the way she arrived, in the dark, in a small space, with the people closest to her, and the rest of the world found out later. The comment that will define this video. I want you to go to the comments right now, before chapter 4, before the closing, and tell me which theory you believe. Jerusalem, Ephesus, the Dormition, the quiet vanishing. And I want you to tell me why. Because the theory you choose says something about how you understand the entire arc of her life. And I read every single comment, every one, for answers to the same question. 2,000 years. No consensus. What does that tell us? It tells us she was real enough to argue about. Important enough that getting it wrong felt unacceptable. Loved enough that every tradition wanted to claim the ending. That is not the legacy of a figure in a painting. That is the legacy of a woman who actually lived. What do you leave behind when you have already given everything? Wherever she was, Jerusalem or Ephesus, a room on Mount Zion or a stone house on a hillside full of nightingales. The final years of Mary's life looked the same. She woke before dawn. She ground grain. She baked bread. She carried water. The same motions her hands had known since she was a girl in Nazareth. The muscle memory of a life built entirely from ordinary work done faithfully inside extraordinary circumstances. 50 years of the same motions. Different houses. Different cities, different decades, the same hands, and every day, visitors. Because by the time Mary was in her 60s, the church was spreading across the Roman Empire, and everyone who had heard the story secondhand wanted to hear it from the one living person who had been present for all of it. They came with the same question every time. What was he like? Picture her in those final years. Sitting in a courtyard, or by a window, or at a doorway open to whatever landscape surrounded her. An oil lamp burning, a young believer sitting across from her, leaning forward, not wanting to miss a single word. And Mary, The woman who had carried all of it quietly for decades, finally opening that treasury for the last time. The angel, the exact words he said, the way the room felt different after. Elizabeth's face in the doorway saying, "I believe you." The cave floor in Bethlehem. The cold. The weight of him in her arms for the first time. The specific, unrepeatable weight of a child you've been carrying inside your body for 9 months and are now finally holding. The cross. The 3 words from above it. The way she did not fall. The fire at Pentecost. The moment the Holy Spirit came to a room full of people the same way it had once come to her alone. And she understood, perhaps for the first time fully, that this was always what the yes had been for. Not just him, all of them. Here is the detail that should stop you cold. The story she told in those final years to the young believers who sat across from her with oil lamps burning and asked what he was like, are the stories you still hear today. Every Christmas, every nativity, every time a child asks where Jesus was born and a parent says, "In a manger in Bethlehem because there was no room," you are hearing the echo of an old woman's voice in a small room somewhere between Jerusalem and Ephesus, giving away the last thing she had left to give, her memory. And you did not know until right now that it came from her. She did not write a gospel. She did not lead a church. She did not preach a sermon that anyone recorded. She held no title, no office, no formal position in the movement her son built. The most important woman in Christian history left no autobiography, no memoir, no letter with her name on it that has survived 2,000 years. She left something harder to destroy than any document. She left her memory inside the people she told it to. And they told it to someone else. And that someone told Luke. And Luke wrote it down. And it has not stopped being read since. Here is what the final days looked like. Not from a single definitive account, because no such account exists, but from everything we know about how she lived. She woke before dawn. She said the Shema, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." The same words she had whispered over his cradle before he could speak. The same words he would later call the greatest commandment. The same words she had said every morning and every evening since she was a girl in Nazareth, learning them from her own mother's voice. Same words, different walls. Same woman, same faithfulness. And here is the question the church has never fully answered. If Mary's body is somewhere, in a tomb near Gethsemane, in the ground on a Turkish hillside, why has no one ever found remains that every tradition agrees on? Why is there no grave that settles the argument? Why did the woman who gave the world its most visited story leave behind no verified resting place? Here is what I believe, and I want you to tell me if you believe it too. She did not need one. The grave is not where she is. She is in the 2 chapters of Luke that 2 billion people carry. She is in every nativity on every mantelpiece. She is in every mother who has ever done the ordinary things faithfully in the dark, without recognition, without audience, without anyone writing down what it cost. She is in the prayer said over a cradle at midnight that nobody hears but the child. She is still here, 2,000 years later. The echoes have not stopped. Step back. See the whole life from above. A dark room in Nazareth. A girl saying yes to something that could kill her. Waking up the next morning and grinding the grain anyway. 100 miles on foot through dangerous country because the one person who might believe her was at the other end of that road. A cave in Bethlehem. The longest night of her life. And then him, Finally him, his weight in her arms, his face. 30 years of ordinary life in an ordinary village, raising a child who was like every other child, except in the ways that mattered most. The cross, standing, not falling, the upper room, the fire, a church born in the same breath as her grief. Decades of giving the story away to everyone who needed it. And then, in a small room, in a city that history could not agree on, the woman who had been faithful in the dark from the very first moment went into a different kind of dark and did not come back. No announcement, no monument built in her lifetime, no crowd at the gate, just a woman who spent her entire life doing the ordinary things, grinding grain, lighting lamps, carrying water, speaking the prayer, telling the story, with such consistency and such faithfulness that the story is still moving through the world 2,000 years later, in 100 languages, on every continent, by people who have never heard her name spoken aloud, but carry the words she gave Luke in their hearts every December without knowing where those words came from. They came from her. They have always come from her. God chose the quiet life, the small life, the life nobody writes about, and he called it enough. If this changed how you see the end of her story, if somewhere in the last 30 minutes you thought of a woman in your life who has been faithful and quiet and unrecognized for longer than she should have been, share this with her right now. Not later, right now. There is a woman somewhere tonight who has been carrying something heavy for years and has never once been told that what she is doing matters. Send her this. Tell her Mary did it too, and it mattered more than anyone alive knew. If you're new here, subscribe. This channel exists for one reason: to finish the stories the church forgot to finish. The hidden chapters, the real people behind the paintings. Next, we're going inside the life of the man who stood at that cross beside her. The man Jesus trusted with his mother. The man who outlived every other apostle. The only one of the 12 who was not killed. John. His story is stranger and more human than anything you've been told. Stay close.